Hi everyone and welcome to our presentation on intonation. In our presentation, we'll go through three main parts: some basic concepts, the functions of intonation, and intonation patterns.
Now, what is intonation? Now, intonation is a feature of pronunciation, just like stress, rhythm, etc. And it is really something that is common to all languages, not just English. Now, we could also say that intonation is the music of speech. We could say that intonation is how our voice rises and falls when we speak. And so this is really a change in pitch. You might wonder, what is pitch? We can describe pitch as the highness and lowness of our voice. I'm going to give you an example. I'm just going to hum at a normal pitch range, and then I'm going to go higher, back to normal, and lower. Just listen. You've just heard my voice starting at a normal pitch range, probably the range I would be speaking just right now. This is the pitch range I'm usually speaking in. Then my voice went higher, then back to normal, and then lower. I would encourage you to try this experiment out yourself. Experiment a bit with your voice here. So that is really what we mean by pitch.
Tones is a certain pattern of speech movement. By means of tones, the speaker signals whether what he or she said is a proclamation, an agreement, a disagreement, a question, a hesitation, or indicator of completion and continuation of turn-taking in speech. Tonic syllable is the most stressed syllable where the tones fall. This syllable is more prominent than the others and will tend to be longer in duration and louder than the other stressed syllable in the utterance. The tonic syllable is normally the primary stressed syllable of the last contents word in an intonation phrase. For example, I'm a teacher. Tomorrow I go to the cinema. Intonation phrase is a stretch of discourse which contains a tonic syllable. An utterance can be spoken as one or several tone units depending on the tempo of speech and the speaker purpose of communication. The faster a person speaks, the longer and fewer the tone unit. The slower the speech, the shorter and more numerous the tone unit. For example, I'm going to school for a meeting tomorrow. I'm going to school for a meeting tomorrow. Or I'm going to school for a meeting tomorrow. Obviously, the utterance, I'm going to school for a meeting tomorrow, can be said with one pause, one tone unit in the first sentence, as in two pause, two tone units in the second sentence, and three pause, three tone units as in the third sentence. However, South Murica states that a typical tone unit might be set off by pause before and after, contains one prominent element, has an intonation contour of its own, has a grammatical coherent internal structure. At syntactic level, a noun phrase, a verb phrase, an adverbial phrase, a prepositional phrase, a clause, or even a short simple tense can be a tone unit. For example, in the sentence A, if your team does its job well, the manager will speak kindly about your group with 5 tone unit. And in sentence B, if your team does its job well, the manager will speak kindly about your group with 3 tone unit. So, in short, how many tone units depend on the speaker speaking rate and whether the phrase by the end of which he paused makes sense or not.
Firstly, the intonation is how to express the speaker's attitude or emotions to the topic or as a response to a listener's statement and sometimes adds additional meaning to the semantics of a statement, and the speaker uses their intonation to express the confidence, interest, surprise, doubt, joy, or anything else, and this can be done by tone, and the choice of which is context dependent.
Grammatical function identifies grammatical structures in speech. It is claimed that in English, a falling pitch movement is associated with statement, but a rising pitch turns a statement into a yes-no question.
Intonation as a grammatical function uses rising and falling tones to indicate questions and answers, new and old information, and finished and unfinished sentences. In yes or no questions, the intonation usually rises or rises then falls. For example, do you like animals? In questions that contain a question word such as who, what, when, where, why, or how, the intonation usually falls. What's your favorite animal? In contrasting questions, the intonation rises, then falls. Do you prefer cats or dogs? Intonation often rises with old information and falls with new information. I like cats and dogs, but I really like rabbits. In question tags, the intonation falls, then rises if the answer is uncertain. You aren't afraid of wolves, are you? If the answer is certain, the intonation falls. You aren't afraid of wolves, are you?
Some sentences may be ambiguous when written, but this can be removed by the use of intonation. An often cited example is the sentence, "Those who sold quickly made a profit." This sentence can be uttered in at least two different ways. Those who sold quickly made a profit, and those who sold quickly made a profit. English speakers hear two different paraphrases of the sentences because of the different placement of the tone unit boundary, as in, a profit was made by those who sold quickly. A profit was quickly made by those who sold. Another example is the use of a rising tone in statements. The sentence, "They are going to have a picnic," is usually said at a statement like, "They are going to have a picnic." In informal speech, however, we may hear, "They are going to have a picnic."
Intonation can also be used as an attitudinal function. This means that it uses rising and falling tones to express emotion. A rising tone can indicate surprise. Really? A falling tone can indicate disbelief. Really? A flat tone can indicate boredom. Really?
Intonation used in the question text can have a rising tone or a falling tone. "They're coming tomorrow, aren't they?" and "They're coming tomorrow, aren't they?" When it has a falling tone, as in A, the speaker is comparatively certain that the information is correct, and the simple asking for confirmation, while the rising tone in B is set to indicate a lesser degree of certainty, so the speaker is asking for information. Accentual function distinguishes between old and new information in an utterance and directs the listener's attention to the silent point of the message. For example, "I want to know where he is traveling to," and "She was wearing a red dress."
Let's move to part 7.2.4, discard function. The first one, discard function, signals the ways utterances are constructed and or cohere in a spoken discord, resemble the divisions of written text into sentence and paragraph. The discard function of intonation is subdivided into two main areas: the use of intonation to focus the listener's attention on the message that is the most important, and the regulation of conversational behavior. In the case of attention focusing, the placing of tonic stress on the proper syllables on a particular word in the tone unit is the most obvious use. In many cases, the tonic stress is placed on the word that is the most important. For example, I went to Thailand. Sometimes describing the tonic stress placement according to information content seems to be more appropriate. If a word's occurrence in a given sentence is more predictable, then the information content is that word is lower too. Tonic stress tends to be placed on the word with a higher information content. Example, I have to take the dog for a walk. Another way in which intonation can assist in focusing attention is the tone chosen. For example, since the last time we met, when we had that huge dinner, I've been on a diet. With regard to the functions of conversational behavior regulation, intonation is quite important in conversational interaction of two or more speakers. The speakers use different prosodic components to indicate to others that they have finished speaking, that the other person is expected to speak, that a particular kind of response is expected. Let's move to part 7.3 International Patterns. There are four common types of international patterns: for, rise, rise for, and for rise. Intonation serves different functions in communication, and how it is used depends on context. Let's analyze the meaning of yes in this situation. Number one, yes, a long for, an affirmative to yes, no question and to emphasize the point. Number two, yes, a short for, an affirmative to yes, no question and not to emphasize the point. Number three, yes, a long side to ask for the speaker. I said, it means, did you say yes?
Hi guys, I'm Hạnh Chi. Now I will tell you about part 3, intonation patterns. Lesson 1, full intonation. First of all, do you know what is a full intonation? Okay, it's used to indicate finality. The speaker has delivered a message and that is all. And do you know we use the full tone in what case? Let me check. The first case is the end of a declarative utterance that gives a statement. For example, I gave her a new dress. And the case number 2, the end of a reply to questions. For example, what subject do you have today? English, art, and math. Okay, the third case is the end of a W8 questions. We ask for information. For example, how old are you? Where are you from? Or when is your birthday? The fourth case, either the end of a commands like don't make noise, right? Fifth case is a question tag that requests confirmation or seeks an agreement rather than a real question. The tag may follow a statement or an exclamatory sentence. For example, he's clever, isn't he? Yes, I see. The sixth case, either a noun phrase added to a W8 question to clarify the subject or the object of the question. For example, how long has he been studying English? And the seventh one, either the end of a clause, usually a tone unit containing new information. For example, see you on Sunday. Sorry, but I'm going on a holiday. And the last one, either the end of indirect or more impolite request, usually with would you mind or I wonder. For example, would you mind closing the door? Or I wonder if you can close the door for me. Now we move to section 2, rise intonation. Rise intonation is used to indicate non-finality. The speaker had not read the end of what he said. And do you know we use it in what case? Now let me check. Number 1, in the end of a tone unit, a phrase or clause containing the information that has been mentioned. already known or implicitly implied. For example, I'm on diet because I want to lose weight. You can just eat less. Number 2. Vocatives that indicate the addressee, like me, open the book. Number 3. Question tasks that show uncertainty and require answers. For example, you were done all, haven't you? And number 4. Yes/no questions to make sure about something, like are you his girlfriend? Number 5. Direct requests, offers, and suggestions. They are in forms of says/no questions or question talk with modal verbs. For example, would you like some coffee? Number 6. Phrases or WH question to get speaker request what he has said. For example, I've got a call from my ex. What? Number 7. A noun phrase referring to the subject or object of the statement before it. For example, I can't stand it. The smell brilliant. And number 8 is list. All the items listed in an utterance have the rising tone, except the last one which has the falling tone because it ends a piece of message. For example, he has bought a dress, a t-shirt, and jeans.
The first one is the rise for intonation. Rise for intonation is convey a certainty, exclamation, the strong conviction, and the strength of the feeling of the speaker. And there are some cases when the rise for intonation occur. The first one is the exclamation. For example, what a lazy student, or how cold it is. The second one is the alternative questions. For example, is her pen is the blue one or black one? Or are we eating in or out this evening? And the third one for this when the intonation occurs is the conditional sentences. For example, if I were you, I would knock the door first. And the last one is the questions is functioning and function as the suggestion, like why don't we go to the park? And the full rise intonation. The full rise intonation is express the reluctance, the hesitation, the uncertainty or reservation as a part of the speaker. And there are some circumstances when this full rise intonation occur. For example, the first one is the incomplete statement. For example, for this is, how was the party last night? Well, the decoration was beautiful. And next one is the end of the word clause or the is clause followed by a clause. For example, the main reason for this problem is people do not have enough money. The third one is the end of the relative clause with in a collapsed sentence if the information was provided in the previous sentence. For example, whose bag it is? Oh, it belongs to the boy came to our house yesterday. And the second one is next one is the end of the suggested answer given by the questioner. How to get there? By car. And the last one is a phrase or clause showing the contrast or comparison if its information is meant to be given. For example, I prefer staying at home than going out. And the fifth one is rise or full rise intonation. There are some cases for this. The first one is subordinate of clauses or phrases. For example, despite being late, he didn't apologize his teacher. And the second one is the emphatic communications, such as greetings, leave takings, expression of thanks, and or many other social formulas. For example, see you again or have a good day.